On a cold February morning in 2013, a teenager in a northern Chinese city was sleeping when he suddenly heard a loud knock on his door. He opened his eyes and realized that it was not a dream. Someone was really knocking on his door. The boy's name was Doc. The night before, he had a terrible fight with his parents because his parents wanted him to focus on his studies, but his interest was playing the drums, so he fell asleep without eating dinner. But what was going to happen this morning was not an ordinary family problem. The knocking was getting louder and louder. He frowned and opened the door. Two strangers stood there. They were dressed in ordinary clothes, but there was a stern look in their eyes. "Who are you?" Doc asked. "Yes," he replied hesitantly. "Do you know this person?" The stranger said a name that Doc had never heard in his life. Doc, frightened, replied vaguely, "I don't know him." The stranger said in a deep voice, "He was arrested yesterday and said you were his accomplice. You have to come with us for investigation." Doc was worried and felt a slight panic. Suddenly, he remembered that he had seen YouTube last night. He used a VPN to learn drums, so is that why the two men started leading him to the car? Doc silently followed them, but after a while, Doc felt something was wrong. The car was not an official police car, but an ordinary creature. After 30 minutes, the car stopped in a military part of the city, in front of a gate surrounded by high walls. They stopped. Doc's chest trembled. They were not really police. They were lying. Doc realized that now he would not be able to get out of this place easily. He looked around and saw that the place was not even a police station, but a huge fenced compound. Within a moment, two men took him out of the car and took him inside. As soon as he entered the gate, he realized that this was no ordinary place. A man stood in front of him and said in a deep voice, "Why are you here?" "Do you know?" Doc asked before he could say anything. The man answered himself, "You are addicted to the internet. It is leading you to destruction. Your parents told us that you are immersed in online games and videos, not paying attention to your studies, so you have been brought here to be corrected." Doc was shocked. What are they saying? They are actually just drum learning videos on YouTube. You would have thought, but this was a new fear in China, internet addiction. Yes, in the early 2000s, the rate of internet use in China was increasing rapidly. The country's young people would sit in internet cafes day and night, playing video games for hours and chatting. Parents became worried that their children were forgetting real life. The government came up with a new solution: correctional centers. These were actually military-style punitive camps. Doc's parents also believed that their son needed correction, so they sent him to this camp. Doc gradually became familiar with the strict rules of this camp. From the first day, he was thrown into a terrible routine. Every day he had to wake up at 5 in the morning, then run and do military-style physical exercises. Breakfast was minimal food, which was only enough to survive. A camp instructor warned everyone on the first day, "You are no longer free. There is no way out of here. Severe punishment awaits those who do not follow the rules." The boys around Doc were like him. Some were real game addicts, while others spent a little more time online. But here they were known as criminals. The strangest thing inside the camp was the free massage. After the first few days, Doc noticed that some boys voluntarily sat at the feet of the teachers and massaged their shoulders and backs. Although it seemed strange at first, he later realized that it was actually a survival tactic. In this camp, those who could please the teachers got a little better food and could avoid punishment and even occasionally get a little exemption from the strict discipline of the camp. And the easiest way to get this benefit was to give the teachers free massages. Doc gradually realized that this place was not just a correctional center, It was actually a kind of prison where the only way to survive was to not follow the rules and keep the instructors happy. So one day, he went to a trainer himself and stood up and said, "Sir, can I give you a massage?" The trainer laughed and shook his head. You're learning. Okay, start. Doc was slowly adapting to the routine of this camp. The harsh, unprovoked torture and free massages to please the instructors had become normal to him now. But suddenly, his body shuddered when he heard about a mysterious place in the camp. The name of this place was room number 13. At first, no one would say clearly about this room, they would only warn him in whispers. Never go to room 13. Once you enter, people will never be the same again. Doc thought at first that it might be a rumor, but one day, he saw a boy from the camp being taken away. Then, within a few moments, flashes of electricity and unbearable screams came from inside. Doc's body shuddered. What was going on in room 13? One day, an old prisoner of the camp came to his ear and said that there was an electric shock on the brain. It was actually their special treatment, which they called brainwashing. They thought that this would cure our internet addiction. The head doctor of this camp was Dr. Yang, whom many called Uncle Yang. People from outside considered him a respected psychiatrist. He knew, but the prisoners who went to his clinic actually said something else. Gradually, Doc came to understand that the real purpose of this camp was not to correct anyone, but to completely break them from the inside. Those who rebelled or tried to escape were taken to room 13. One day, Doc himself was in danger. An older brother in the camp was mistreating him, and Doc protested, and that was the end of it. The next morning, 2 instructors came and took him by the hand and said, "You need to be corrected." Doc's blood ran cold. They dragged him away. In front of the door of that cursed room, a familiar face appeared. Dr. Yang asked in a calm voice, "Do you know why you were brought here?" Doc remained silent. "You rebelled. You broke the rules. So your brain needs to be fixed." An assistant came and attached electrodes to Doc's forehead and ears. Suddenly, a strong electric shock spread